Hi, I'm Kelly at Book and Paper Arts, and today I'm going to show you how to make bird's eggs. A variety of bird's eggs that you can use in your any mixed media project. In your art journal, junk journal, altered books, scrapbooking, card making, what have you. These are so versatile and really easy to make. I'm going to start off by showing how you make them using wet materials such as a watercolor or an ink. But if you don't paint, please don't go anywhere because I'm also going to show how you can use this technique with a dry material, a dry medium such as a soft pastel. These are the best. If you like journal arts, altered books, and vintage books, paper, and other ephemera, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and be sure and turn on the notifications, and you will have more of them in your life. Let's go make some eggs. Whether you are using a wet media such as paint or ink, or a dry one such as colored pencils or soft pastels, the technique for making these bird's eggs is pretty much the same. So I'm going to start off showing the basic technique, and I am going to start off with a watercolor, and then we'll look at some other dry media in the next part. Before we do that, we need to draw an egg. Now, I pretty much freehand mine because even with my somewhat limited drawing abilities, I can manage a half moon shape there. And that's the hardest part, is that half moon shape there, that semicircle. But maybe the first few times you do it, you might want a little help, and for that you just need something that's round. You could use, let's see, I've got this little teapot lid, teeny tiny teapot lid. You could use, I've got this makeup. That's a nice size, a nice big size. Today I'm going to start by using this spice jar. It's a super good size. And I'm just drawing around the base of the spice jar like this. And now just kind of bisect that by the eye, right? And go up, 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 up. And eggs come in all different shapes and proportions. I like mine to be half again and a little more. But experiment with a top point up there that makes you happy. Now let's see if that is symmetrical with my pencil here. Duh. Okay, that's pretty close. I am not going to agonize over whether this is geometrically symmetrical. It's just not the way I make stuff. Okay, now with some short strokes, connect. Dum, dum, dum. And there we have a reasonably even bird's egg. Just going to get rid of those lines there. And pick up my watercolors. From here, it's just about adding layer after layer of color for shading and depth. I'm going to use this blue here, and because there's going to be several layers, I want my first one to be super, super light. Just a very light wash. I did let that dry for just a couple of minutes. This is sort of a wet on wet technique, but I want to let that first layer set. before I start moving into it. Now I'm using a deeper color, just slightly though. And I want to go over here on this side, can be either side, and add a deeper color. And then on the right side, I am doing the same, but a more narrow line. And I want to make sure that I leave a kind of a highlight here. So it's going to be an oval inside of this oval shape. I want it to be a little softer, so I'm cleaning off my brush with some water. And now I'm just going to go in here and kind of pat that around there so that's a softer line. And that's as hard as it gets. I'm just going to carry on adding a deeper color and a deeper color. On those edges. I'm just going to pick up some more color so it's a little deeper and keep working into that damp layer. I've let this dry because now I want to add some embellishment, and if it was still wet on wet, it would just get swallowed up. What I want to add are some speckles. If you look at this book of bird's eggs, you'll see that a lot of them do have speckles and smudges, and they're very irregular. So I'm not going to worry a whole lot about whether mine are perfect. I'm going to use a contrasting color and just start adding me some speckles. A few that are bigger, and then some that are just little lines. And you can see that if you were working wet on wet, that this would just be, you would not get this, this detail. It would be all smudgy. So there you go. Egg number 1. You know what's even better than speckles? Splatters. Splatters are one of my favorite go-to mark making techniques ever. So what I'm going to do here is I've chosen a contrasting color. It's kind of a garnet. And I'm loading up my brush with lots of wet, garnety goodness. And now I'm going to speckle and splatter. Look at that, will you? Let's see, let's try some contrasting blue down here. See if that works. Yep, it does work. Again, you want to make sure that your egg is dry before you put this down. And now, 2 things. You've got lots of extra splattering in your background. Well, 1, you can just use it like that because it looks fun and distressed. Or, if you like, when your egg is dry, you can cut it out, like I've done with these. And then you can use them in different projects. I'll show you some ideas for using these in just a bit. But if you don't like the splatters in your background, don't worry about it because you can always cut the egg out and nobody will be the wiser. This egg will be made using a soft pastel. Soft pastels are one of my favorite art supplies, and most of us have some of these kicking around somewhere, so get them out and see how they work. I'm going to make this one kind of pinky, and I'm starting with a very light shade. I'm just putting down some light color and smudging it into place. You can use a blending tool by all means. I just can't be bothered. Again, we're going to build up layer by layer. And that's why we started with this light one. And I'm going to add a slightly contrasting color here to start adding in the layer and depth. And these smudge so well. Look at that. It's already taking on some depth. Let's get rid of that. Let's see. So, but I want to make sure I've got that little highlight there. So we're just leaving that oval inside the oval. And it's super easy to smudge and soften that edge. Let's see, I'm going to add a darker one. You could go with the same color and just add more layers. But because these smudge so well, I'm going to go crazy and use a kind of a contrasting color. Pulling that out into the egg. And do not worry too much about these smudgies because you can erase them or again, cut your egg out. It doesn't matter. Now I'm going to add a bright pink. And again, once I start pulling that out into the body of the egg, it's adding depth and interest. And now I can, let's see, let's go crazy with some purple and just draw in those speckles. You can, of course, add some wet media for your speckles, splatter, or you can just draw them in like this. And then don't smudge those in, just leave those on top. And that's how easy it is to make the bird's egg using a soft pastel. Again, you could also use a colored pencil or what you will. I'm still using a soft pastel, but this time this one is dry on dry, but now I'm gonna do add some water to it and use that pastel as a kind of a water soluble. So we're mixing the dry and the wet technique. But again, using an art supply that most of us have, or it's very inexpensive, would not be hard to find. I've put down dry this layer. I just colored in with my blue pastel and then smudged it into place. And now I'm activating it with just some water on my brush. Now it's nice and wet, and I'm going to go in. Again, you could use the same blue, but I'm going to go with a slightly contrasting one. And I'm going to be a little bit light with the color here because once you get that pastel wet, it really pops on its own. So now take the brush and pull that color out into the egg. Just like you did with the paint. And again, you could add some splatters, or you can just go in with your dry pastel now and dot in some speckles. If you're working the pastel while it's wet, you will not need to fix this. If you're doing the dry on dry, I personally wouldn't fix it myself, but if you want to, you can spritz it with some kind of a fixative, or if you're in a jam, you can even fix it with a little bit of hairspray. But me, I just let them smudge. Finally, I want to do a monochromatic one using ink. This is a botanical ink that I have made out of avocados. And if you like botanical inks, I have an online class teaching you how to make 4 of them. And I will link to that in the text box below this video. You can also use fountain pen ink or drawing ink, whatever you have or that you like working with. But I love this subdued, almost like if terracotta could be a jewel tone, that's what this would be. I started out by adding a lot of water to the ink, just a drop of ink in a lot of water to make this wash for my first super light background. As with the watercolor, I did let this first layer dry a little bit because I didn't want to work in the colors too mushy. So I've let them dry. It's damp. Let's say it's just still damp. So now I'm going in with a more robust layer of the ink. Ink dries a little bit faster than a watercolor, so I'm going to try to get in there and move that around. So I don't have too harsh of a line here where I'm leaving the highlight. And again, I want to soften that up a little bit with just this clean, damp brush. And I'm going to start building up the layers with the dark ink. I have let this dry because now it's time to add splatters. Yay! I'm going to let that dry. Now that we have a big old pile of eggs, here's some ideas about what to do with them. I am not going to cut these out. I am so happy with the way this page turned out, painting the eggs on text. A word about painting on text. You are probably going to be just fine. It will probably take to your paper the same way it would watercolor paper. But definitely try it out, do a test. I did, and I found that this paper, which is old, was also pretty thirsty. So I wasn't able to work the colors as much as I wanted because the paper just sucked them right up. I fixed that by I put down a layer of acrylic gel medium, very light, and let that dry. And that's protecting my paper now and letting the color stay on top of it. But you may not need to do that. Do a test, experiment, see how it works. I could do, this is an altered book that I'm working on. If I wanted to use this as a background for some collage or an altered book, or even for card making, or something like that, that could be the start of my page right there. And then I could add some other elements, and hey presto, off and running, making a page. That would be very fun to start with. Here is another altered book that I'm working in. It's the vintage bank book that I've been working on in the last few videos. I'm not going to put this down, but I could. Put a big bold element there and have it interacting with the eggs as kind of focal points. And that would be a really bold collage element. This is my art journal. And if you've seen my art journal videos, you know that I hardly ever stop working on them. I just keep adding and adding and adding. So what if I wanted to add an egg, a bird's egg, to this layout? Just for the fun of it. One of the things I love about these eggs is that they are great for filling up space. But not in a forced way. They fill up space in a way that is pretty and whimsical and adds to your layout. This is an Altoid tin that I am altering. And for background, I cut out a piece of handwritten paper and then I just painted directly on the paper, as I did here, so that the text is showing through and it is mysterious and pretty and would make a really good beginning background here. Finally, I have altered a playing card. I've just taken a playing card and added some text from a book. Then I inked up the edges. I took a blending tool and my ink pad. You could also use a makeup sponge if you don't have a blending tool. And I just went all the way around like this, doopy doopy doop. And now I can take one of my eggs and let's see. Glue it down. And now I have a card that I could use as a tag. If you make junk journals or art journals and they have pockets, this would be a really charming tag to put into your pocket. Or you could incorporate it as, you know, another layer in some collage or another altered book layout. That would make a really good start. I hope this gets you up and making bird's eggs using whatever materials that you like working in. Just experiment, try them all. If you have any feedback or questions, please let me know in the comments below. I love to compare notes. And also, please check out the text box below this video to find out more about the vintage paper that I sell and my online classes. Until next time, happy making.